Our world has changed completely since we lived in tribal societies, but our brains have not. We are the same. Just as our ancestors, we pay attention to threats, negativity, and drama. I think we all are aware we tend to seek out negative perspectives in the news, but to what extent? In 2014, the news website The City Reporter decided to only publish positive angles in their news for one day. What happened when they skipped all the negative perspectives? They lost 2/3 of their website traffic compared to other days. News producers cannot expect to do good business if they lose 2/3 of their website traffic. They simply need to meet the audience's desire for doom and gloom. How we are affected by the news is something we should evaluate more. I conducted an experiment on myself. I completely skipped the news. My experiment wasn't intentional, but after a period with a lot of challenges, both in my professional life and in my personal life, I became exhausted. I didn't have much energy. I had to avoid a lot of things, including the news. After quite some time, I felt better, and I could easily have started reading the news again, but I didn't think I missed anything important during this time. This was quite surprising to me. News is considered important, and there's a general perception we should all read the news to stay updated about everything. But how important can the news really be if I didn't think I missed anything during this time? This made me think, what's the purpose of news? I thought a lot about the news, but I also thought about us. I came to the conclusion that the news is primarily simplifications about the world, presented as engaging stories. Our world is very complex, and we try to simplify things around us to make sense of everything. Some people simplify a bit too much and create conspiracy theories, but we all do it in a way. We want things simplified, such as in the news. My name is Tobias. I'm a sober news junkie since 8 years. For my part, I think it has worked out fine, completely skipping the news. I'm happier, I can concentrate better, and this might be surprising, I actually think I'm better informed than most people around me. The news reports on what fits the news logic, but it's not necessarily an informative perception of the world. They prefer to report on things happening now, things that are surprising, and things that can be presented as engaging stories. But there are a lot of important things that may not be happening right now, that may not be surprising at all, and may be too complex to present as engaging stories. These are things we rarely get to read about in the news. It would be easy to blame the news for this, but we are all a part of the problem. We prefer to read about things happening now rather than things happened 2 weeks ago. We prefer to read about surprising things rather than common things. And we prefer to read about engaging stories rather than boring facts. Why? The evolution made us this way. Our ancestors, who lived in tribal societies, were dependent on good information gathering. If they heard there was a disease in a nearby tribe, it was valuable information for them that contributed to their survival. It was important for them to know who was who in the hierarchy, who they could trust, who ended up in bed with whom, if they used beds. Those who kept themselves informed survived, and we are their living descendants. Just as our ancestors, we have a built-in drive to try to keep ourselves informed. The problem is that this drive is not very good at judging what is useful information and what is not. In tribal societies, news was relevant because they only got news from their immediate surroundings. We get news from all over the world, and it's practically never anything that affects us. Still, our drive to try to keep ourselves informed rewards us for this information gathering, whether it's useful information or not. This is a problem because it means we waste a lot of time and mental effort seeking information we practically cannot use. The news producers get more attention and money if they manage to stress us out, and they do try. Imagine you are all news outlets. If one of you shouts loudly, we will all hear the shouting. But everyone wants the attention. Everyone is shouting, and they are trying to shout louder than each other. In a situation like this, useful information will be increasingly harder to find. It's not as engaging. The negative perspectives and the exaggerations in the news comes at a cost. They not only provide poor information, but also make us feel down, pessimistic, and fearful. Numerous studies have shown how the news affects our well-being, causing stress, anxiety, depression, passivity, and lower cognitive performance. Many people think it's the responsibility to read the news to stay updated about everything. But it's not reasonable to expect people to take this responsibility if it comes with health implications. I can assure you there are other ways to take this responsibility. There is a tremendous amount of information that is not adapted to a caveman news logic. If we can ignore that news logic, we can seek out information that is more value neutral and more coherent, and we can take this responsibility. Stay updated, become more educated, and also keep our good mood. But what would happen if everyone skipped the news, as I have done? Would the world be a better place? I think so, in many ways. Stressed people would be relieved. Fewer people might feel bad about all the negative perspectives and the stressful exaggerations. I think the world would be less polarized, and I think our mental health would be better. More people might have faith in the future. Most of the news we read really has nothing to do with us, and we can skip most of it without affecting anything. But it could happen that an important news story really needs to be spread. Who would report on it if no one reads the news? Well, this is a dilemma. But I think the answer is that the news must become better at being relevant. They must become better at having positive and value-neutral perspectives as well. They should stick to facts rather than negative stories. They should skip the over-detailed focus that in reality doesn't mean anything, and rather report on trends and broader perspectives. But they can only do this if we reward them. And this might be difficult since we are cavemen at heart. If we reward the news with our outdated caveman brains, we will get more misery in the news. But if we try to think about how we consume the news, we can try to reward what is useful and informative, and we can try to ignore what is just stressful noise. Therefore, it's our responsibility to make the news better. The news can only be better if we reward what is useful and informative. To understand how the news affects each of us, I think everyone should try skipping the news. Maybe not forever, but for a certain period at least. I've had a group of people who skipped the news for 30 days. Everyone who completed this challenge said afterwards they felt they were in a better mood than before. Most of them said they felt more present and could concentrate better than before. If you would like to try to skip the news, please tell me how it goes and what you learned from it. If you don't want to skip the news completely, you can try to find other, hopefully healthier ways to consume news. I have some tips for you. Firstly, don't read news in the morning. Since the news is often problem-oriented and stressful, your mood might be affected. A study presented in Harvard Business Review shows that your mood might be affected 6 to 8 hours later as well. So, if you really need to read the news, consider doing it in the afternoon. At least you won't ruin your whole day. Secondly, read the news afterwards. Just because something is happening right now, it doesn't mean it's actually that important. Read the news a day late or a week late. You will find the news much less engaging, maybe even boring, but it will be easier to understand what is informative and what is nothing but noise. My third tip for you is to read news on paper, such as in a weekly magazine. There are no flashing banners or clickbait links, and you can choose to read your magazine in a peaceful setting. Studies show that those who read on paper have a higher reading comprehension compared to those who read on screens. I have one last tip for you. It's very simple, but still important. Just ask yourself, what's the purpose of news? Thank you.